WDYKA.
The What Do You Know About podcast.
Each episode, we'll be breaking down pop culture topics from totally different worlds.
What do you know about
Video games,
reality TV,
science fiction,
true crime,
tech,
YouTubers,
and more.
Let's get into it. Welcome back to another episode of the What Do You Know About podcast. We're very excited to be back. I'm one of your hosts, Mikaela, and
Chris, we're back. Mikaela and Chris back for episode 2. We did it.
Yeah.
We made a podcast.
We did it. We got it out there. We did it. And I just want to say thank you to anyone who's listened to the first episode.
Like before people...
Whoever, we're so thankful for all of the family and friends that have listened and given us good feedback, and yeah, we're glad that you came back to listen. So yeah. What are you mouthing to me?
The thing.
I know.
You said like 7 times.
I know. I realized when I was editing the first episode how much I say
I know. That's what you said.
And it's so painful because you don't realize how much you do it at all. You don't realize until you're having to go back and listen to your voice. And there I go again. So
we can edit this part out if you want.
No, it's fine.
Well, it's authentic.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to say it's authentic for it to be authentic. Anyways, let's see. I guess we'll explain a little bit what the podcast is if this is your first time listening. Chris and I both...
We do have the intro, I mean, you know.
Yeah.
From totally different worlds.
So Chris and I are both going to break down a couple topics, but we're going to take turns, and neither of us know what the other person's topic is. It's a total secret to the two of us. We haven't had any time to, look up things before we come to record. So yeah, I don't know if we want to just go ahead and get started. So figure out who's going to go first. What do you want to do?
Well, let's recap last week. Last week was our first episode. Again, thank you for anybody that tuned in for the first episode. Family and friends.
And maybe strangers. Who knows?
And maybe strangers in the future.
I don't know. Maybe some strangers actually listen to it. I have no idea.
I don't know how podcasts work. In terms of growing an audience. So who knows? Anyways, last week, I talked about StarCraft, which is a video game franchise. We got into that. And Mikaela talked about The Bachelor, well-renowned reality TV show.
Indeed.
Renowned in reality TV show circles.
Exactly. And in most TV circles. I mean, lots of people watch The Bachelor.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, depends on your definition of renowned.
Sure. Exactly. Yeah, I think, I don't know, it was a good episode. It also was a good opportunity for us to kind of learn, things we want to change or do a little different or be better at. So yeah, it's great. I don't know, great first episode, great first opportunity to kind of get our feet wet, so to speak. So yeah, this next episode, we decided, so last episode we did rock, paper, scissors to see who was going to go first with their topic. This one we decided that we would just pick a card from a deck and see who got the highest card. Who knows, in the future we might actually play a game that is, game. Oh yeah, there's your card ASMR.
Well, it would be ASMR if I was next to the microphone. ASMR is when you get really close and you whisper right next to the microphone like this.
Okay, you're making me uncomfortable.
That was the idea.
And I'm very aware of what
That's
ASMR
what
is.
ASMR is.
But you're get the sound up there.
Like...
Oh yeah.
Well, it's very satisfying on the recording software too. You can see all the little spikes. So I think how we should do this is we'll do 2 out of 3 again. Oh, you want to do some shuffling? Okay.
Yeah.
Do the ASMR.
No, I just want to make sure it's fair. You know, you're not cheating this thing here.
You know, this is... I'll get into this later, but... Never mind.
Later? When?
It's nothing.
What? Cheating? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll get into cheating later.
Oh, is that part of your topic?
Sure. Okay, so what I figure we'll do best, 2 out of 3. You take one, I take one, and then whoever wins that, and then you do that 3 times.
Okay. Flip. I got the ace.
I have the 4. We didn't decide if ace is low or high, but since you were all excited, we'll give it ace is high.
I always thought ace was high. Comes after king.
But
I guess
depends
some
on
people
the
think
game
it's
you're
before
playing.
too.
It depends on the game you're playing.
Yeah.
Anyways, we'll say ace is high, so you win the first one.
I got a 5.
8.
All right,
So
you
it's
get that
going
one.
to round 3.
This is the deciding round. 8.
9.
You gotta be kidding me. Okay.
You want to go out of 5?
No. All right, you go first.
All right. Last week, I talked about a video game, and I was struggling to find another topic because I realized after writing out a list of topics that 85% of the things I would want to talk about are video games.
Yep.
I think maybe going forward, I might be throwing out 85% video games, but I didn't want to do them 2 times in a row for the first 2 episodes, so we're not doing a video game.
Okay.
We are doing a game. What do you know about Magic: The Gathering?
Oh, okay. I don't know much about it, really, honestly, like hardly anything. I know it's a card game. I know you can also play it online, but it's a card game. I'm assuming like a card strategy type game. I don't know how it's described specifically, like what category it's in. I know that it's like, you know, fantasy, you know, monsters and, you know, fantasy type stuff. And that's about it. I don't really know too much else. I know you've gotten really into it more recently, but I can't say I know anything besides that. I don't know anything about Magic.
You don't know it?
I know it's been around for a while.
Okay.
It's not a new thing. I know that. I don't know, the online thing, it might be more new, but yeah, the card game itself, not that new.
Any other facts?
I mean, I guess I know that some cards are worth a lot. Some cards are worth, you know, you can sell them and make a fair amount of money. You know, you get the card packs and you go through them and you see what's worth what. And this is a good card, or is a rare card, or shiny collector version, you know, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't really know anything else.
Okay. That was pretty short.
Yeah.
You know what we should do? We should do like a special episode where we just go back and forth with what do you know about this, but like, you know, that's the only thing. And then do a bunch of those all in one show.
We don't actually explain what it is. It's just what do we think it is?
Maybe you talk as long as you can without like a 2-second pause.
Maybe we could do that with like, you know how sometimes there's like some kind of game you can do with Wikipedia where it like just takes you to random pages, you know? You could just do that, be like, what do you know about this?
Yeah.
What do you know about this?
Well, it can be the thing where like if you have a 2 or 3 second pause, then you lose and you have to talk as long as you can about it.
That's a good idea.
We'll do that sometime. As a fun game.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right. So, Magic: The Gathering, like you said, it's a card game. Let's go through my outline. I'm going to do a similar outline to what I did for StarCraft. I'm starting with a basic section. Then I'll actually dive deep into it. And then I'll do cultural impact. Make me sound super fancy. And then I will end with my experiences. All right, basics. You're right, it's a card game. It's what's known as a there's two names for this: a collectible card game or a trading card game. So a CCG or a TCG. There's debates as to what you want to call it, because you call it you might have originally been more called a trading card game, but like people don't really trade, they just like buy and sell, so anyways, I think Magic is usually more commonly referred to as a collectible card game, but there are other games like Pokemon cards,
Right.
but Pokemon is explicitly called the Pokemon trading card game. So
Right. Yeah, that's the first thing that came to mind was Pokemon, because I know that that's really heavy with trading. But
the trading aspect probably comes from sports cards, which I think have been called trading cards for longer.
oh yeah, like just that's the name of it. They don't say, oh, this is a sports card. It's like, no, these are trading cards.
Well, yeah, that's one. I think that name's been around longer.
Yeah.
Magic is probably the most popular of these games to play. Pokemon is probably the most popular to collect right now. I don't know statistics or numbers on that or anything. There's also Yu-Gi-Oh, which is probably third place all around. So the way it works, you collect cards, you build a deck of cards, and you play one-on-one, or depending on, there's some rule sets you can play where it's more than two people. And you play a game with other people with the cards that you've collected. And the way it works is new cards are released regularly through what are called expansion sets. Usually just people call them sets. So 4 times a year, they release like 200 to 400 cards.
Wow.
In a set. Some of them aren't unique. Some of them are reprints.
Oh, okay.
A lot of them are overlap and stuff. But as a matter of fact, this week a new set is releasing. And that is, I just went to an event with your brother this past weekend.
Shout out Isaac.
Shout out Isaac. Which was a pre-release event for that set.
Nice.
All right, so there's the basic section. Let's talk about Magic. Mikaela. Sorry, I just thought, has anybody seen the old YouTube video from the beginning days, to the Chocolate Rain music video?
Yes.
and then it has the guy, I go away from the microphone to breathe. That's what Mikaela just went away from the microphone to big yawn.
I did. It was a full Chocolate Rain moment.
All right.
Okay, sorry.
Let's actually dive into everything. I'm going to talk about the development of Magic and then the game itself. All right, so Magic the Gathering is developed by a company called Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast, do you happen to know what else they do? It's really only one thing.
I have no idea. Is it Dungeons? D&D?
Yes.
Oh.
So Wizards of the Coast mainly does Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering.
Okay.
As their two main properties. As a matter of fact, there's some collaboration. A set that came out, I think it was last year. Yeah, a set that came out last year. Actually, another set that came out this year. Both been like crossover D&D sets.
Oh,
where
cool.
a lot of the cards are D&D themed. Mm-hmm. And have like characters and stuff. And some of them have mechanics where like you roll dice and there was cool stuff.
Nice.
Anyways. Magic was originally created by a guy named Richard Garfield, PhD in combinatorial mathematics at University of Pennsylvania.
What does that mean? What is combinatorial?
So, combinatorial mathematics is math that has to do with counting, primarily.
Isn't that all math?
That's what the top of Wikipedia said.
What?
It's math that has to do with like finite. It's sort of like number theory. I'm spouting out these words that I knew in college that I don't know anymore. But it's with counting. It's with finite. It's with integers, single numbers, different theories around that. I don't know how else to put it.
More power to them.
It's like the kind of math where, like, you know how they have, like, those, like, puzzles where it's, like, they're, like, statistical puzzles, or, like, you have to get the 5 people across the river, and you put the 2 people in the boat, and then you leave the 3 there, but only, you know, that kind of stuff, like those riddles.
I think so.
It's the kind of math that has to deal with, like, problems like that, sort of.
Okay.
But,
Well,
you know, it's on a deeper level. Obviously, it's a PhD.
Yeah. Right. So, you know, we just, basically, he's smart and a bit of a nerd.
I mean, it's the exact kind of math that would go into, like, if you did an analysis of magic, it's the kind of math that you would use for that. So that makes sense. Anyways, spin back to 1991. He was at UPenn, and he's always loved games, board games, and he has lots of board game ideas. So he presented them to Wizards of the Coast, which at the time was this really small company. It just started. They had a few role-playing games, not Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons is a lot older, and Wizards of the Coast did not run it yet.
Oh, okay.
So he presented one of his big ideas to Wizards. They said, don't quite like that idea, or it's not feasible or something, but, like, we like some of your side ideas. He had a side idea, what was it called? I should have written it down. It's like 5 Magics or something like that. It was like one of his side ideas, and it was like a card game. They're like, okay, we like some of your side ideas. What we'd like is a portable game that's easy for people to play at gaming conventions during, like, downtime. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't require a whole ton of stuff, you know. Anyway, so after that conversation, he goes back to school, working on his PhD at UPenn. UPenn's actually my mom's alma mater, so another shout out. So the idea that was to expand on the idea of a board game with something that's sort of infinitely expandable, and it's collectible, and every player sort of has their own collection, and they put their own identity into how they play the game. And there's no boards, everybody brings their own stuff, you know. And then the idea would be, you know, cards would be distributed the way that sports cards. So the way that Magic works is that you have packs, and you open a pack, and there's like 15 cards in there, and you pay like $5 for it or something. And that's been around as for, like, baseball cards and
a long time,
all that stuff for a very long time. So it's like turn that into, you can use your collection to play a game. Okay, so we went back to school, and while he's at school, he developed about 150 cards for this first set of this game. He photocopied them onto paper, made, like, test cards, and volunteer groups at the college, the math department, tested this game, and they worked out, you know, what they needed to do in terms of the different powers of the cards. There's actually lots of documentation on this if you look online. It's very interesting stuff. Anyways, once it was ready, they shopped it around at different game stores and conventions. Game launched in August 1993.
Okay.
So this is 28 years ago? 29 years ago.
Yeah.
Launched in August. All 10 million cards were sold out in October.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So it was very popular.
Instant success.
Yeah.
Printed 10 million cards. All sold out October. 2 months later. First expansion was released in December of 1993.
Oh, okay. So the same year.
Yeah.
Wow.
And not only do first expansions, we did multiple printings of that first set because they had sold out.
I can only imagine what something from, like, the first set, a card from the first set would be worth today. It's probably crazy.
We'll get into that. That's on the cultural impact section.
Awesome. I love that kind of stuff.
All right. Well, I mean, we watched that one YouTube video, and you got really mad at that kind of stuff.
I did. I get very mad about it because it's like people really spent millions of dollars on, like, a CSGO gun or something. You know, you're like, what?
Okay, that one was like... But... That one was more like $250,000.
Yeah, but still, it's like, what? And then I don't know. Some other things I'm like, okay, kind of cool. It's like old. If it's historical, I get it. But if it's like a Kanye signed, I don't know, piece of poop, I'm like, why? Why are you paying millions of dollars for that?
Supreme on it.
Right, exactly. It's got it stuck right in there.
All right. Anyways, I won't go into the rest of Magic history after that. It's just the game existed after
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Some stats on that. There was already 1 billion cards printed by the end of 1994.
Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize how popular it was at the beginning. I don't know why. I just kind of thought it was like building more success over time, but
yeah, I mean, that's what I would have thought too. It's very interesting.
yeah.
To this day, there's about, here, you want to guess how many sets there's been?
Oh boy. You said like 4 every year. Sets or expansions?
I don't think it's always been, but by sets I mean expansions. Okay. I don't know how long it's been for every year.
Okay. I don't know. I'm gonna guess like 200.
It's 140, about
okay.
140. There's about 22,000 unique cards.
Okay.
So cards that do different things. No stats exist on the number of cards that have been printed so far, like total.
Oh, okay. Wow. I'm surprised they haven't kept track of that.
Well, I mean, they haven't revealed or anything. Maybe they do keep track of it.
Oh, I gotcha.
They did say, Wizards said that between 2008 and 2016, they printed over 20 billion.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That's so many.
That is a lot.
Oh, wow. I don't know why. I just never thought of it being as that popular, I guess. Maybe I just am like... not in the circles as much, but
I'm with you actually. I think I wouldn't have thought so either.
Right, because I don't know. I mean, in general, trading cards have it's become a lot more mainstream lately. Lots of like YouTubers and everything's like, they get the big boxes and they're like, unboxing, it's such a big deal, or live stream, people are unboxing cards. Like it's more popular now, I feel like. But maybe I'm wrong. Obviously, I am. I just thought it kind of has built in popularity over time. I always thought, like, sports trading cards were the most popular back in the day, but I guess not.
Yeah, I don't think those are that big anymore.
Not anymore. I think more of the trading and selling is more popular now, but...
All right, let's move on to the game itself. I have some cards in my hand here that I'll show Mikaela for her to get some ideas of things.
Cool.
Okay. The reason the game is called Magic is because... Here's the idea of the game is that the two players are like they're wizards. They're facing off against each other, and all of their cards are their spells that they're doing their spells.
Okay. Is it called Magic or Magic the Gathering?
Actually, that's interesting. I found this. I didn't write this down, but I found out on Wikipedia that while they're developing the game, they just called it Magic, and that's what they wanted to call the game was just Magic.
Yeah.
But they were like. The legal counsel or whatever was like, you can't trademark the word magic.
Right.
It's like it's too simple of a name.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, we're going to change it to, I think they said we're going to change it to like Mana Splash or something. I don't know. They're like, okay. But then like when they were still making the game, they just kept calling it Magic.
Yeah.
And then they settled on Magic the Gathering.
Oh, okay.
Everybody called it Magic or MTG.
Yeah.
Anyways, remember how with the StarCraft episode we did a story breakdown?
Oh, uh-huh.
Magic has a story that is
really?
way more complicated than
geez.
StarCraft's story.
Oh, jeez. Really? There's a story? Is there a book or?
There's books. There's comics. There's everything, and all the cards have story.
Oh wow.
And lore and everything. I am underqualified to talk about all of that. TLDR is. There's a multiverse of different fantasy worlds that are called planes.
Okay.
There's medieval worlds. There's like this feudal Japanese world. It's called Kamigawa. There's an ancient Greece world. I forget what that one's called. Or it's called Theros. There's Innistrad, which is like a gothic horror 18th century world. Basically, they have all these fantasy worlds that, you can riff different themes on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I'm assuming there's cards that are like kind of related to each of these worlds.
So each set usually takes place in a plane.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
the set sort of depicts different events that happen in that. Like, the set is like some kind of main event happening in the story in that plane, and then the cards depict different parts of the event, right?
Okay, gotcha.
Main characters, a lot of the main characters are called planeswalkers, and these are people that can travel between, that's why they're called planeswalkers. They can travel between the multiverse, you know?
Okay, yeah.
And so you'll get lots of cards that, you know, you'll see a familiar character even though it's a different world.
Right.
And that's basically the idea. All right, so I'm going to start showing you some of these cards. There's 2 types of cards. The first type of card is called a land. These are lands.
Okay.
And the second type of card is a spell. Here's a spell. That's a creature spell. Basically, lands give you resources called mana, and then you have to spend the mana to play the spells. And that's basically what we'll go into. As for spells, there's basically 2 main types. One of them are creatures, where you play the spell, you spend the mana, and you put the creature in the middle of the board. And then every turn, your creatures like fight their creatures, or they fight you, or you know, you go back and forth. There's combat, right?
Okay.
And then there's all these other kinds of spells that can do different effects. And we won't go into any of those. Each player has a health meter. Usually starts at 20.
Okay.
My creatures can attack you and make your health go down. Or you can have your creatures block for you or that kind of stuff. And that's basically it. So let's talk about some things, some other aspects of cards here. We have alternate arts. So you have a card there called Island. Here's an alternate art island.
Ooh, I love this one.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll have to post this somewhere.
That card that you have
That's
there.
beautiful.
Oh yeah, so if people are interested, that's the stained glass alternate art for Island from Dominaria United, the new set. So look that up.
That's awesome.
Here's an alternate art for that other card you're holding. This card, by the way, is Garna, Blood Fist of Keld. Here's an alternate art.
Oh,
It's also
wow.
a foil, so the card is shiny.
Oh, that's so cool. Another stained glass?
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
That's the alternate art theme for the new set that's just coming out.
I
It's
love
like the
that.
stained glass stuff. All right.
That's beautiful.
Here's some other cards. These are different creatures or other spells. All right. Let's talk about the main core of the game, which is called the color pie, or the 5 colors of magic.
Okay.
So if you notice the cards you're holding, there comes in 5 different colors.
Yeah.
White, blue, black, red, and green.
Mm-hmm.
So this is sort of the core of the game, is this mana that you create from lands can come in 5 different types of colors, and the cards come in different colors, and they all have sort of themes associated with them.
Mm-hmm.
So white, and this is taking from the Magic Wiki or whatever. White exemplifies peace, law, structure, selflessness, and equality. White cards typically include humans, knights, angels, spells that heal yourself, or spells that exile cards from the game, but without destroying them.
Okay.
So it's sort of the goody two-shoes, you know.
Yeah.
Blue cards, blue exemplifies knowledge, deceit, caution, deliberation, and perfection.
Mm.
Blue typically includes flying creatures, aquatic creatures, cards that draw more cards, cards that counter other cards, cards that sort of manipulate the game state in interesting, you know, out-of-the-box ways that aren't so direct.
Gotcha.
Black cards exemplify power, self-interest, death, sacrifice, uninhibitedness. I don't know if that's a word, but...
There's some contradiction there.
What do you mean?
What was the first word?
Power.
Then the next word?
Self-interest.
But then also it says sacrifice?
Yeah, so black is the color of... a YouTube video said this was good. It was the color of, like, pragmatism. Basically, a lot of black cards give you something good in exchange for, like, sacrificing your own creatures or, like, dealing damage to yourself or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like whatever it takes to get the good thing, even if it's hurting yourself. So black typically includes like horror creatures like zombies, cards that sacrifice your own creatures, cards that destroy enemy creatures, mostly things that give you good things in exchange for extra price. All right. Red exemplifies freedom, emotion, action, impulse, and destruction. Typically includes goblins, dragons, fire creatures. There's a lot of spells that deal direct damage to creatures and players. Cards that are mostly just, they're really aggressive and fast.
Okay.
Finally, green exemplifies nature, wildlife, connection, spirituality, and tradition. Green includes elves, animals, really big creatures like giant worms that come out of the ground and stuff. Big creatures with powerful stats. They're very focused on creatures in particular. They also focus on cards that give you extra lands so you can ramp up your resources to have more resources than the other player.
Okay.
And those are the 5 colors of Magic. There's also cards that can have multiple colors. I believe I gave you one that is a black and a blue card.
Oh, okay.
Most decks of Magic usually have 2 to 3 colors in the deck. So you'll have some blue lands, some black lands, and then you'll have some blue cards and some black cards. Maybe some cards that are both blue and black, like the one I handed you.
Yep.
Or maybe it'll have 3. And there's also different types of lands that can give you more than 1 color of mana, but for some kind of downside.
Right.
1 color is also common, depending on strategy. 4 and 5 colors are sort of harder to play, but, some people, might make a deck out of it. And that's basically it. That's basically all we'll talk about the game itself.
Nice. Yeah, obviously there's probably a lot more in-depth, gameplay, all that stuff that's, very complicated, and it's hard to probably explain without actually playing.
Basically, you go back and forth, you take turns. On your turn, you draw a card, and then you play cards.
Right.
And the cards you can play is determined by the lands that you have and the colors of the lands and all that.
Right.
And then the cards do a bajillion different effects. Like I said, 22,000 unique cards.
That is a lot.
All right. In terms of the ways to play Magic, there's a ton of different ways. You can play it with paper cards. There's also online versions. Did you know there are 2 Magic the Gathering online games?
I did not.
I did not either until I heard about it on the internet. There's Magic the Gathering Online and Magic the Gathering Arena.
Oh, okay.
Magic Gathering Online has been around for 10, 15 years. It's really kind of old interface, but it has all the cards of all time, and it's a place that older players play, maybe to hone their skills in their big tournaments where they play with a bajillion old cards that are really broken, and they're $2,000 decks. Magic the Gathering Arena is more recent. It's maybe 5 years old. That's the game that I play. And it's more modern. It's there's a lot of modern collectible card games that are digital, like Hearthstone is one. And it sort of takes a lot of notes from those sorts of games.
Oh, okay.
But it doesn't have all the cards. It only has the cards that have been released since the game came out. As for actually playing the game, there's different formats. There's legacy formats where you play with all the cards that have ever been out. And your deck's going to cost $2,000 if you actually want to be competitive, because all the cards from the beginning of the game are super broken and also expensive. There's rotating formats, which is mostly what I play online. One called Standard, where you can only play with cards that were released this year and last year.
Oh, okay.
Essentially.
Yeah.
It's basically from last year's sets and this year's. So yeah, it could be 5 to 8 different sets, because 4 sets released in a year. It actually just rotated. So we used to be 8 sets, and now it's 5 sets because the new set came out for this year.
Oh, okay.
There's also limited formats, which is what I do with your brother. You go to the game store, and it's called a draft, where instead of building your own deck, you go to a store, you open up a bunch of packs of cards, and then like you each pick one at a time, and then you all play against each other. There's also Commander, which is a format that's really popular right now, where you have like way more cards, and it includes a lot of like really broken cards, and you can play with like 4 people at the same time, and you have this card called your Commander, which you try to make as broken as possible, and he's like always on the field.
What do you mean by broken?
Broken? By broken, I mean powerful.
Okay. Like overpowered more than
Yeah.
the other ones.
Yeah.
Comparatively.
Yes. That is what your brother likes to play, Commander. And that's
Okay.
a really popular, it's a more casual format, so it's not as sweaty,
Oh, gotcha.
you know.
Yeah. Maybe not so high stakes. You got more people going
Yeah.
in there. Yeah.
But it's fun. I've played it.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely not like, you know, like I said, it's not competitive. It's the kind of thing where like if you actually really tried hard to make some kind of deck that was completely overpowered and nobody could beat you, then like nobody would want to play with you.
Right.
Like,
The point is to have fun
yeah.
and not, just end the game as fast
And
as
that's
possible.
actually the most popular format right now. It's become
Nice.
popular more recently.
Mm-hmm.
To the chagrin, probably, of all the sweaty tournament players. That's what I hear at the game store a lot, where it's like, yeah, it's like, I like Commander, but like, it's a board game. It's not really Magic, you know, that kind of stuff.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay. They're like, back in my day.
Anyways, that's the talk about the game. We can talk about cultural impact.
Sure. Awesome. Let's do it.
All right, I'm gonna have 3 things to talk about. First of all is the trading card game boom of the 90s. Magic was the first one of these kind of games.
Right.
The first game where, you get packs and you open them and then you play a game with the cards.
Right.
A melding of a board game and and the baseball cards, essentially.
Right.
However, once Magic came out in 1993, this stuff started popping out all over the place. Pokemon trading card game was huge.
Yep.
We talked about, in our unreleased episode, we talked about Pokemon, but we didn't talk about the Pokemon trading card game. Pokemon came out in like 1996 or 1997, depending on which side of the Pacific you live in.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And the trading card game shortly thereafter. And it was like, schools were banning them.
It was
It was
huge.
contraband,
Yeah. It was huge.
But Pokemon was like, people, like, most kids didn't actually play Pokemon cards,
Right. I think it was more about the collecting.
But Pokemon
Of the
Pokemon cards is a game you can play, and it's still, today, and it's tournaments
Sure.
and all that stuff. Yu-Gi-Oh! Also came out. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is and I think I might have that. I have that written to talk about later. But I guess Yu-Gi-Oh! Is sort of this anime that came out that sort of has like a parody of. It had like a parody of Magic in it.
Oh, okay.
Called Duel Monsters.
Mm-hmm.
It was a manga, and in the manga, there's this whole like ancient Egyptian whatever, but like the idea is that like they play all these games, and one of the games was called Duel Monsters, which is like a parody of Magic.
Yeah.
But then that became so popular that became the whole thing, and then they did the anime in America, and that became so popular with kids, and then they put the card game to go with it. So
It's kind of funny.
yeah. But yeah, in the 90s, they had like Star Wars version. My brothers, which are a little older than me, and were really in the thick of the 90s, they were crazy. They had boxes and boxes of Star Wars cards. There was, Star Wars trading card game. There was like a Star Trek game. There's pretty much anything. They had
any major franchise probably had
Yeah.
some kind of a game with cards.
Yeah. And if you
At
go to
that
game
time.
stores nowadays, you'll still find some like more fringe games that are like some franchises take on the trading card game.
Right.
All right, second thing, I want to talk about in cultural impact is the collector's market. So this is the part. This is what you were waiting for, right?
Yes. Yes. I love this kind of stuff.
All right. There are people that buy and sell magic cards, and that's their job.
Right.
They're like investors. They're like stockbrokers,
right. Right. So wild.
So you can sell the rarest of brand new cards for like $25. Mm-hmm. I did that last weekend.
Right.
At the pre-release event, I got this really rare card that was like the most rare one in the set. For anybody listening, that's Shieldred the Apocalypse. And they had at the game store, they had this screen on the wall that had like this ticker that had like all of the like the prices for all the cards that they're wanting to buy right now.
It is like this,
and it was like at the top of the screen. And
wow.
Actually, your brother pulled the other one that was at the top of the screen.
That's awesome. You guys got so lucky.
Yeah. So I sold it for $25 of store credit.
Yeah.
And I had pulled, like a week earlier, I had pulled a card called Boseiju Who Endures.
Wow.
That was like $15. I sold them both, and I bought a card case with the store credit.
Very
nice. Some of the best older cards for older formats can go up to like $100.
Okay.
The very rarest, and also the ones that are the most powerful of the really old cards, can go for like up to 1,000 or more.
That's wild.
And the rarest magic card of all time, which is also, well, actually, maybe it's not the rarest. It's the most powerful magic card of all time.
Okay.
And it's very, very rare. It's from the very first set. It's called the Black Lotus. Do you want to guess? We did watch that YouTube video, so you would have seen it, but you
wouldn't remember. I won't remember.
Okay, so signed and framed at an auction. Take your guess.
I don't know. The guess I have is probably too low. 5,000?
Is substantially too low.
Okay. 100,000?
That's not substantially too low, but it is too low.
Oh my goodness. 200,000?
All right, I'm just going to stop you. Okay. $500,000 for this signed and framed Black Lotus.
I can't believe that. Oh my gosh. And you know they paid like a penny basically probably for it.
The Black Lotus, what makes it so powerful, so remember I say lands give you your mana, and the lands you pay for your spells using the lands, right? Mm-hmm. Basically you get one land per turn though. So on the first turn you'll have 1 mana, on the second turn you'll have 2 mana, etc., right?
Okay.
The Black Lotus is a card you can play for free that gives you 3 mana.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, essentially, if you have it in your hand at the beginning of the turn, you have 4 mana on your first turn instead of 1.
Well, yeah, I can see how that puts you at, like, a major advantage to someone else, especially in the newer games.
And they've backpedaled on designs like that since the game came out, which means that is, like, the only card that does something like that.
Right.
You know?
Wow.
That's one of the reasons why it's so powerful. It's banned in all formats except for there's a format called like Vintage.
Oh, okay.
Which has all cards ever.
Yeah.
And like you can only have 1 copy in your deck. So it's still banned even in the format that is.
So like, even if you do have it, it's like you couldn't go anywhere and play with it.
If you had it, you probably wouldn't want to actually play with it. Because it's worth $500,000.
Right. You probably don't want to take that out of your house.
All right. Last thing in cultural impact.
Wild.
Last thing in cultural impact is the tournament scene. We talked about this. We talked about esports last time on StarCraft. Similar kind of thing. It's older than StarCraft. And also StarCraft didn't have an esports scene right when it came out, so it's even older. It's probably like 10 years StarCraft superior. And not that Magic is an esport, but you know, essentially.
Sure.
I see the E stands for electronic, I guess, you know. Anyways, professional gaming scene, you know, there's people that their job is to be a professional Magic player. World Championship in 2019 had a prize pool of $1 million.
Oh my!
That's not the first prize. That's the pool for the whole tournament.
Oh my!
According to Magic the Gathering's website, I'm going to butcher this. Paulo Vitor Demo da Rosa.
Wow.
I've seen him on like YouTube videos and stuff. He's cool.
Mm-hmm.
He is the world leader in revenue for a professional Magic player.
Oh my gosh.
He's made $1 million over his career in Magic winnings.
Wow. Imagine being a millionaire from playing a card game. It's awesome.
You know, it's cool. There's a card. So they started doing this thing where if you win like the world championships, then they put your face like on a card.
Oh,
like,
really?
you know, the cards, they just have characters and they just made it look like him or whatever.
Oh my gosh. It's like the painting from Parks and Rec, probably, where it's like Leslie Knope and Tom, or the centaur and the little baby, the little cherub.
But yeah, there's a card that I've played with because it's really recent that his face is on it.
My goodness. That's awesome.
All right. Let's we're almost done here. We're going to talk about my experiences with the game. It's a shorter one than the StarCraft story. So as a kid, Yu-Gi-Oh, which we already talked about, this is where I was going to talk about it.
Right.
Was really big. The Pokemon trading card game was really big. My brothers, like I said, they were super into the Star Wars trading card game. They were also super into the sports card. They have boxes and boxes of football cards, basketball cards, baseball cards. I was on the tail end of, you know, their obsessions with everything. And it was really more Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon for me. So I would play the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game with my brother all the time.
Yeah.
We'd play on the floor. We'd have our little mats that have the little zones where you put different kinds of cards. And, you know, we watched the TV show on Kids WB channel on Saturday morning. So, you know, we know all the cards and stuff.
Right.
At that time, I was aware of Magic. And I think this is the case for most people or kids at that time that played Yu-Gi-Oh! And stuff. It's like Magic was sort of the grown-up game, you know?
Right.
It was like the game... It was either you're really, really nerdy or like you're just like really a lot older.
Right.
Or you're a teenager.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
Which is probably one of the reasons why I would also have been surprised like you were that it was as big as...
Right. Right.
You know.
Because, it was obviously just bigger with, obviously, older people because it was geared towards, and, you know, advertised probably more for... You know, people who are already into like fantasy games and D&D and you know, things like that. So yeah, makes sense.
So that's where my story would have stopped. About 4 months ago, I was browsing the Nintendo Switch eShop, as I do probably too often. I was looking at the free games, and I found a game called Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, Yu-Gi-Oh! It's like, oh, and I'd always been interested for a while, like, oh, I should try and really get into like a card game. And so I was like, let's take a look at this Yu-Gi-Oh! Game. Messed around. It was a lot of fun. So I was like, okay, well, I should try like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic and see which one is better or something. Long story short, Magic is way better. Yu-Gi-Oh!'s terrible.
Oh, really?
Okay, like from a game design standpoint, even back then when I was a kid, like if you would have got to like the highest competitive level, it would have been iffy. Nowadays, it's rough. It's like basically at the highest competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Level, every game lasts like just 2 turns.
What?
Because the cards are so complicated and have so many effects, and there's no resource system. Like, you know, I said the mana, and you'd have, 1 mana on turn 1, 2 mana on turn 2. That kind of keeps you from playing all the big stuff right away.
Sure.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Doesn't have that. And there's all bajillion combos, so basically you play, like, you get your combo off, and then, like, you win.
Wow.
But you have to know what all the cards do. Like, it's just impossible.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I got Magic Arena, and I found that really fun, and I played that for a few months. I played online for like 3 months. I started going to the game store more recently because your brother's your brother has friends that got him into it recently, and we've done a couple drafts, and that's where we're at today. So yeah,
You've been growing your collection?
Yeah. Although, so I found that I probably am not going to want to play constructed formats where you build your own deck in person as much as just going to drafts and having fun, because it's a lot less accessible, I think, and a lot more expensive to build good decks in person than it is online on the app.
Right.
Because you can get more cards. It's
Right.
easier to get the cards that you want. So I think, and that's why I sold that really valuable card weekend instead of keeping it.
Yeah.
I was going to have fun facts, but I only found one.
Oh.
Did you know, you didn't know, but did anybody listening know that when the game was invented, it originally had an ante-rule, A-N-T-E, as in, it's like marbles. When you play with somebody, you have to like put in a card, like, and whoever wins gets both.
Oh, wow.
Like, you have to bet your cards to play
the
game.
Okay.
There's actually some early cards that like have like things that like mess with the rules of anteing. They like say ante in the rules text.
Oh.
It's like double your ante or something.
Oh, wow.
That was back. Those were back in the days before people selling their cards for $500,000.
Right. I'm still like, what? That's so wild to me. I mean, I understand collecting, and I understand that there's value in collecting things and all that, but it is so insane to me that someone would spend $500,000 on a piece of thicker paper. Like, when you really think about it deeply, you're like, that has no value besides, like, the how long it's been around, and, obviously the power behind it. Like, you have to say, I personally think this has value. To me, I wouldn't pay $1. I don't care about it. But for some people, they'd pay $500,000, which is so wild.
It is wild.
So wild. Oh, man. Anyways, awesome. Thanks for talking about this, because...
what did you learn? We have to talk about that.
I learned a lot. Like I said, I really didn't know much. The few little things.
What's the most surprising thing you learned? Or most interesting?
I think the most surprising thing was just how popular it was. I didn't realize it was really that much of a popular game even when it started. I don't know, in my head, like I said before, I always thought it was kind of sort of just nerds.
Mm-hmm.
I
mean, it is.
But... It is, but obviously there's a lot of them. And I didn't realize it, So yeah, that was cool to learn. And thanks for... That was a good one. That was a good topic.
All right. Well, let's go to, quote, commercial break.
Yeah, we'll take a break. We're going to go get some water, turn on the AC for a little bit so we can cool off maybe. And then we'll be right back.
All right. Welcome back from the, quote, commercial break. We're back and we're ready to do Mikaela's topic.
Yeah. Just a quick side note. During our little break, we were looking through a bunch of different cards. And I have to say, the art that is on these cards is truly amazing, beautiful, gorgeous. Not all of them, obviously, or some of them are like kind of creepy, gory monster things. But we were looking at different, because they have all these different themes and things that they do with the different cards. And it is so pretty, some of them, and just so cool, some of this art. And you mentioned that there's a YouTube channel that you watch that kind of goes through the art. What was the
Rhystic Studies?
Rhystic Studies.
They do these great, nice, clean video essays. Sometimes you don't even need the context of... He kind of like ties in, something that isn't even magic related, and ties it to magic in some kind of cool, roundabout way.
I love that.
In a lot of videos, he talks about just the art. I don't know, but based on some of his essays, it feels like he has like an art history degree or something.
Oh, okay. I feel like I want to go watch this now, because I loved a lot of the art there. I've always loved art, and it's been something that one of my friends and I have, like, we talk about art, we go to art museums and things. So I don't know. I guess I've seen a lot of the cards, but most of the ones I've seen are like monsters and things. Yeah. But these ones are just, there's so many of them in there that are so beautiful. Landscapes, this whole stained glass sort of
that's the new gimmick in the newest set. the alternate art cards are all as stained glass themed.
Just beautiful and really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, if you're interested, I would suggest checking it out and maybe check out this YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. So let's
Okay.
do it. I do not know anything. I mean, like, okay, I know that there's that you're doing some kind of true crime adjacent topic, historical. I don't know.
Sure.
I have no clue.
Well, okay. Christopher, what do you know about Ellicott City's Hell House?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So I grew up in Ellicott City.
You did?
Which is a town in Maryland.
It's a suburb kind of outside Baltimore.
Yes.
Yeah.
A fancy suburb.
And a very nice suburb.
Howard County is a very rich county. Although Ellicott City isn't like, the center, all the rich people in Ellicott City. But, well...
It has... So, Ellicott
we won't
City...
go on a tangent about, rich people or whatever. It's
no.
Make this a podcast for everybody.
Right. Ellicott City has been voted, like, top 20 places to live in the U.S. for a lot of years. So, it is a very nice place to live. Very, lots of beautiful... places to go. It's just a nice place to live.
So when most people think of Ellicott City, they think of the old downtown street, which, it's like it's a main street of
Very
town
historic.
from like 1700s, and it's actually has made national news like 3 different times in the past 10 years for a very bad reason, which was flooding.
Really, really, really,
Very
really serious
bad.
flooding.
And like a lot of the local shops just got completely gutted, and
People
all that stuff.
Definitely did not survive. A few people. So yeah, it was
That
not
happened
good.
like 2 times in like 2 years.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. And I mean, they also made news because Gordon Ramsay came down and tried to help some of the shops. So
he did his.
Yeah.
I don't know what show it was.
I don't know. It was some kind of Hell's Kitchen or
No, not Hell's Kitchen.
I don't know. I don't know.
No, it wasn't one of the negative ones. It was like the one where he goes and like he fixes something up.
Yeah.
Shout out to a restaurant that doesn't exist anymore, Bean Hollow.
Yeah, they got washed out in the flood. Really, really devastating, honestly, because it was kind of a staple for, I don't know, a lot of people that I knew, myself included. I used to live basically down there in kind of right up the hill on Main Street, because Ellicott City is sort of the Main Street is the very bottom of a bunch of hills, sort of the reason for the flooding. But, I could walk to all these shops. I could walk down to the Bean Hollow from my house. It was, I don't know, it was a staple place for a lot of people. It was devastating when a lot of these shops sort of fell apart, and I don't know, it was so sad to see it happen. But also for us that live down there, it's like, okay, that's part of the part of living down there is you get to walk to all of these places. Mm-hmm. And it was a long time that all of these stores were completely closed. So yeah.
Anyways,
that isn't, however, what we're talking about today.
Yeah, I know. Okay. So, the Ellicott City Hell House it's like a abandoned building. It's like it's haunted, that kind of thing. I think can you do tours, or is it just you just go there? You went there with a friend at one point.
Been there lots of times, actually. Like probably 3 or 4 times, yeah.
Yeah. It's your classic spooky abandoned building haunted situation. I guess there was like a murder tied to it. No, or that's just you see making faces. People can't see faces on the podcast.
It's all like urban legend kind of stuff.
That's what I got.
All right.
Is this like? Is this just a local interest topic? Like, how wide does this?
I'll tell you.
Okay.
I'll tell you. Okay. So, a little bit of a backstory. I actually had a blog that I don't know, I didn't keep up with it very much, so I'm not even gonna like link it in the show notes or anything because I don't want anyone to find it. But I basically did a bunch of research and wrote a whole blog post about this. thing. So I actually just took that blog post and then went back and updated a lot of things because some things have changed since I wrote it, and just there's some new information and stuff. So I've updated it, but I've, a lot of it's the same. So I'm honestly just going to kind of read from it and, talk off of some of the stuff that I wrote. But if it sounds scripted, that's because it kind of is. Okay. So let's get started.
No, let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
Play the music again.
Yeah. Okay. So just a few minutes up the street from Ellicott City's charming Main Street are the remnants of what locals call the Hell House. While there isn't much house left, many still believe the grounds are haunted and full of darkness. So, a little bit of history. The scenic location started out as a hotel and tavern. Being so close to the B&O Railroad, it was a perfect location for travelers to rest and enjoy the scenery. If people don't know, the B&O Railroad, like the oldest station, is in Ellicott City, and there's a whole museum, and it's, a pretty big historical thing. The B&O Railroad being the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad. So, it's a long, stretching railroad, very historic and, well known. And Ellicott City played a big part in it. So, anyways, in 1866, the Ellicott brothers sold the property where the Hell House is now at to the Congregation of the Most Holy Redeemer for $15,000, which would now be, do you want to guess how much that is in today's money?
What time did you say?
1866.
You said 15,000?
15,000.
For the house or for the land? Or
for the land, yeah.
That would be a lot. I mean, that's like multiple millions, right?
No.
Really?
So what is now $280,000. So really, it was not that much money when you think of how much a piece of land in Howard County costs.
I would have thought
a lot. It costs a lot.
Inflation would be more. Huh.
I literally checked it this morning, so.
Uh-huh.
And then in 1867, so the year after, the congregation started adding additional levels to what is known as the upper house of the Hell House. They laid 672,000 bricks in the span of 18 months. And the bricklayers were earned $5 a day, which I don't know if you want to guess how much that would be in today's money. I love this kind of stuff.
I mean, I could just reverse engineer the math of what you just said.
That's okay. It would be $100 a day, which
pretty good.
Is really good money even now, which is sad. I guess it depends on how long they worked, but anyways. And then they also built a large chapel and a greenhouse and a few other houses that were used for like smaller schools and storages. So there's lots of little houses kind of built in this property, along with a big house, a chapel, and a couple other little places. So from 1866 until 1907, the location was used as a Roman Catholic seminary. It was very close to the headquarters in Baltimore, and in 1882, they actually renamed it St. Mary's College. So that's what it's more widely known as, is St. Mary's College. Hell House is kind of the name that the locals dubbed it, but St. Mary's is sort of the name that, if you wanted to go Google it, you would Google St. Mary's, you know.
Went from St. Mary's to the Hell House.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that part, well, maybe you'll get into this. Is that like, is it just Hell House because, it's haunted, or does it have something to do with its Roman Catholic history?
Yeah, I think it partially comes from, like, the lore and...
The lore has to do with the Roman Catholic history?
Yeah.
Actually, no, it would be good. Isn't there, like, a abandoned, like, mental hospital in Catonsville?
I don't know if it's in Catonsville, but there is one in Maryland not too far from there.
We've driven past it, like, on the way to places in Catonsville before, right?
I'm not sure I know what you're talking about. We'll
look it up later.
Yeah. Maybe for another episode.
Maybe it's not abandoned. Maybe it just looks abandoned.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're talking about, but who knows? I know what you're talking about.
It reminds me of, like, Arkham Asylum from
yes,
Batman.
I know what you're talking about. And yes, I think it was. And now it is used for, like, it's a mental health facility of some kind. but it was abandoned for a while. I know what you're talking about, and we'll
Yeah.
figure out what that is later.
It's really like freaky.
It is, because it's sort of a ghost town feeling all around there. You know, it doesn't.
Well, yeah.
You don't see anyone walking around,
Like I said,
but it's huge.
It makes me think of Arkham Asylum from Batman.
Yes,
like it's this,
it has that vibe.
It's like gothic architecture, kind of.
And all it's like grass, but all the grass is dead. That was the other thing that always got me around that place. Dead grass everywhere. Anyways, that's another spooky kind of spot. But, okay. So, in 1907, the men that were in seminary were moved from Ellicott City to New York, and the building started to be used as a place for men contemplating entering the religious life, which is another term for that is the novitiate. I don't know much about Catholic religion, so I'm not going to go into all of this, but basically they're just there learning for about 14 months about what religious life would look like for them. They spend a lot of their time just reading, praying.
So it's their 30-day free trial.
Exactly, but it's 14 months.
A 14-month free trial.
And then in 1968, there was a devastating house fire, which burned down much of the lower house. And in 1972, the college was shut down completely and had only 10 men in the graduating class.
What was the year of the fire again?
1968. So 4 years later, the whole thing shut down.
Wow.
And there were some suspicious circumstances to the fire that kind of have led into a lot of the sort of lore that we'll get into later, but there hasn't been anything released about the cause of the fire. However, all around Ellicott City, there's a lot of these mansions, big houses, beautiful, like almost castle-like buildings that have experienced these really devastating fires. And I wanted to do more research on it. I just didn't get the chance. But I'm like, why are so many of these big, beautiful houses burning down, or big, like, historic buildings burning down in Ellicott City? Is this someone doing this? I don't know. It was like in the 60s and 80s, you know, around then. I'm like, what's going on? Anyway, so in 1982, the property was bought by a developer with the intentions of converting the property into apartments, which is sort of pretty common for the area, I would say. And it ended up kind of just falling through. I read a couple conflicting things, whether it was like locals basically saying like this land is historical, you shouldn't touch it, or just the developers like not following up with any of it and not actually doing anything. But basically at the end of the day, the whole building was abandoned. So the building was still standing, but it was completely abandoned, empty. So this is kind of where you get into the Hell House sort of era of the property. Because sort of near in the 90s, it kind of turned into like lots of gossip around town about like the creepy stuff that would happen there, and it being haunted, and there's ghosts and all this stuff, which is really common for Ellicott City if you don't know. And I'm gonna kind of talk about that a little bit more later, but Ellicott City is known for being like, there's ghost tours, and it's like a haunted town, you know. So
the Salem of Maryland.
Right. Some might say. So on the property, there's been a man by the name of Alan Rufus Hudson. He lived on the property as a caretaker when it was owned by the Roman Catholic Church. And after it was sold, he still stayed on the property to look after it and keep trespassers away, I guess. Even though he technically had no right to stay there, he felt very like it was his duty to keep the property taken care of.
That's the perfect name for a story like this.
I know, right? Alan Rufus Hudson. Rufus Hudson. I know. Doesn't it sound so perfect for a man who's like not okay? I don't know why. Something
just perfect
about
for
it.
A ghost story
yes.
name.
So obviously he had good intentions, you know, he cared about this property and about, you know, buildings staying nice, and, you know, it's historical, and, you know, it's a beautiful building. It's a beautiful, you know, there's a chapel, there's a church, all this stuff. But, unfortunately, In 1996, he was charged for shooting and critically injuring an intruder on the property. This was apparently a common occurrence. Lots of people came and looking at this property because it was abandoned and haunted. You know, lots of people are coming up there because they want to.
When was the charge?
In 1996.
Oh boy.
So
you've gone and looked at the property.
Yeah, well, not that recent.
Yeah.
Obviously, I wasn't born yet, but you know, lots and lots of people would go up there because there's lots of rumors that it was haunted, and I don't know, I feel like this way. It's fun to explore an abandoned place, and they felt the same way. So yeah, lots of teens, young adults going up there, looking around. But this man living on the property felt so strongly that they should not be on the property, even though he didn't even own it, that he would literally like threaten to shoot them. He was like threatening people as they would walk on the property, and he would shoot at people as they were coming on the property. It would happen a lot. There's a lot of accounts of people who have experienced him from afar, like shooting at them, and they had to like, you know, run away fast. So it kind of eventually, you know, took a dive when he hit someone and was charged. So he is no longer there, obviously. He's probably passed by now because he's old. But, yeah, that was one thing. And I think that was part of the reason why people thought the place was haunted, because there was this old man living on the property. And if you didn't know he was there, I can imagine someone thinking, what is going on? If you hear a voice, you hear a gunshot, whatever, you hear movement, they might not know that there's a man living there, you know. Anyways, so we move on to the next year, 1997, and there is another fire that completely destroys the entire all of the buildings. Everything has been burnt, destroyed in one way or another. And of course, this happens on Halloween night, 1997. So the cause of the fire was indeterminate at the end of the day, but it was most likely arson. So, you know, it was probably teenagers being on the property, you know, doing their thing. Not great. So we move on to the following years. Many people believed it to be haunted. Many people believed something suspicious had happened, causing the school to be closed. There's a lack of evidence supporting any of these claims, but just a bit of a trigger warning talking about death and other bad things here in a second. If you're squeamish at all, or just are triggered by talks of murder or death, whatever, skip ahead a little bit. So some of the claims were things like priests being possessed and going and murdering all the nuns, and one priest being possessed and murdering all the women in the female institute that was there in Ellicott City. You know about the female institute. Like, there are lots of girls that went to school there. Or there being like sacrifices and a priest like being possessed and sacrificing other priests, or like lots of crazy stuff like that, which there is zero proof of, but it just kind of started to spread as that's why it's called the Hell House. It started to spread as the truth, you know. That's basically why they call it the Hell House. That's where the name was dubbed. Haunted / you know, creepy priest doing crazy things.
I would also, I mean, it was like a religious building that burned down.
Yeah.
See how you get Hell House from that too. Sure. So since then, the property has been covered in graffiti. That's one of the biggest things you notice when you go to the property is every piece of brick and stone and cement and all of it is covered in graffiti, and a lot of it is very like satanic, so like pentagrams and upside down crosses and all that kind of stuff. Most of that is probably just people like, you know, trolling. You know, they're just there to perpetuate that it's the Hell House, we gotta draw a pentagram. I don't know if I call that trolling. I don't know. It's urban legends. It's trolling is like goading somebody, trying to make them mad. Although I guess that, I mean,
it would make somebody mad.
Yeah. Everything makes somebody mad.
Right.
We didn't talk about it in my section, but Magic the Gathering, just like with Dungeons and Dragons and with all that stuff.
Right.
Has the satanic panic.
Right. Yep.
Although, according to the Wikipedia page, it was more short-lived.
Maybe.
Whatever that
means. Right. Yeah, I mean, I understand. There's obviously, to me personally, too, a lot of stuff like the satanic, demonic stuff. I am like, let's maybe not play around with that. But, I also realize that a lot of the things, specifically at this location, is like just people wanting to perpetuate the story, the urban legend. However, there are a lot of people that believe that there are like satanic rituals and sacrifices that take place on these grounds, that people go there just to do that. So, adding on to the graffiti, so in the last few years, I haven't been since this has happened, but I was reading about this just today. In the past few years, somebody has gone and painted almost every surface black, and then over top of it is this crazy intricate white like drawings of dragons and like hieroglyphic looking letters. Like, it's everywhere, all over everything. It is like very creepy, but also amazing that somebody did all of this. It was like, it's everywhere and it's a lot of it. One part of the things that they painted has like this poem, and I was like, this is interesting. I don't know why, I just wanted to read it. And I'm like, I didn't look it up to see if it was an actual poem, but maybe it is. So the poem reads, "Look within yourself. What do you see? Is your soul a fading light, strengthened by fury, hardened by heat? Search deeper now. Whatever you find, you must keep. Look within yourself. What do you see?" I don't know if they wrote that poem or if that is a poem written by someone else.
I'm looking it up. Oh, it's lyrics. The light within. It's a song lyric from League of Legends. Hey, we're going back to the esports from last week.
You've got to be kidding me.
Wait, do you have pictures of the thing?
Yeah, I probably will include it in the Instagram post, but also, bro,
does that take out some of the?
It takes out all of the creepiness. But also, maybe all of these like weird symbols and stuff have to do with League of Legends.
You said dragons, and I was like,
dragons.
When you said dragons, and then you said, "Oh, it's creepy." I'm like, that sounds like somebody's like doing like Dungeons and Dragons or something.
Let me show you. I'm really curious now, because I know you don't play League of Legends, but maybe yes. I can't believe it. Oh my gosh.
You're like being all like, this might be a poem. Look within yourself, like.
Right.
And then it's League of Legends. It's pretty funny.
Let's see. I read an article. Here it is. Somebody painted the Maryland's Hell House ruins, and it's a mysterious sight indeed. That's the name of the article. Here. Bro, tell me that's not League of Legends. It's pretty creepy, though.
Probably. That's what it looks like to me.
Oh my gosh. If you don't know what it is, though, that's creepy, right? Literally every surface is covered in like these hieroglyphic looking...
Yeah, but it doesn't look... I don't know. To me, it looks like, something like a fancy dork kind of thing, not like a satanic ritual kind of thing.
No, I don't think it looks like that either. To me, it looks like someone from another world came in and covered all of the surfaces in their own language, That's what I'm thinking. Like, it's not from our world kind of thing is how it feels. But, okay, so you were asking if this goes beyond local legend.
Yeah, so, yeah. How far out does this reach for our podcast about for general audiences.
Yeah, so this television show is pretty widely known. It's one that I've watched. CW Supernatural.
Ah.
Yes. If you don't know what it is, it's okay. You don't have to watch it. In the grand scheme of things, it's okay if you miss watching the show, but I was obsessed with the show. My sister and I would watch every episode together, like the new things that would come on. I mean, we were obsessed with it. I will have to say I have not watched the last few seasons because I can't get that far.
You know, we'll do an episode on it. You'll bring it as a topic 1 week.
1 week.
I've seen some episodes. It's not bad. I mean, here's the thing.
It's CW.
It's the CW.
Yeah.
It's
you know what you're getting
a
yourself
CW
into.
show. Like it's their formula. Especially,
Yes.
that's like the most
Yes.
like their formula. You know.
Absolutely.
It's fun. I don't know. It's
I
a
think
monster. It's a monster of the week show. Literally.
Yep. Yes. It's good. I don't know. I like it. Anyways, so the Hell House was featured in 2 episodes of this show Supernatural. In the show, they display it as St. Mary's Cathedral, I think. But it says Ilchester, Maryland, which Ilchester is like a little tiny town part of Ellicott City. I don't know if it's technically part of Ellicott City, but it's literally there in Ellicott City. So on the show, it says like Ilchester, Maryland, and St. Mary's Cathedral or something. And in the show, it's like 2008 or something. And there's like still a full building, and they're inside this cathedral and everything. So that's not accurate, obviously, because there are no standing buildings at that point. But they still featured like this, church or whatever. That's, there was a cathedral there on the property, and it was called St. Mary's. And in the show, it's the place where Lucifer is like jailed or whatever. He's imprisoned in this specific place.
I feel like I've seen this episode.
You probably have.
So when you were pregnant,
yes,
you watched like
I watched
up to
pretty
season
much
9 or 10 or something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And I tagged along a lot of those episodes.
Yeah.
I think I maybe saw like all of season like 3 or 4. One of those.
Yeah, it's season 4 and 5 are the 2 seasons that this is featured in. I think it's the end and the beginning.
I
of those
think
2
one
episodes,
of those seasons I saw like most of those episodes.
Yeah, probably.
It sounds very familiar.
Basically, it's the place where they go and he's released, from prison.
I remember Lucifer. He's like he has a suit.
No.
No, I remember what his face looks like.
Okay, the person who has a suit is like the Grim Reaper guy. Death.
Okay, we'll save this for another episode.
Okay. So anyways, that's kind of, it's interesting because it's made its way out into the, the world. And I wanted to just plug a podcast real quick that I listened to in preparation for this podcast episode. The podcast is called History Goes Bump, Ghost Tours for the Mind. And they do episodes about a city specifically. So they did an episode about Ellicott City. They very briefly talked about the Hell House. They really didn't touch on it, but if you're at all interested in any of like the hauntings or ghost sightings or anything like that in Ellicott City, go listen to that episode because it was really good. It had lots of history about the town, and yeah, it was great. It's a small trigger warning because they do talk about like death and things, obviously, because they're talking about ghosts, but it was a really good episode to listen to. So anyways, I think actually I found a couple podcasts that talked about the Hell House, but a lot of times if it's people who aren't from around the area, you get a lot of like, not annoying things, but they pronounce something that's not the way it's supposed to be pronounced, or they talk about a certain thing, like, you're like, that's not how that is, or whatever. And there were a couple of the ones that I listened to like that, and I was like, I'm not gonna, but these people, it was like, they really did some good research, so, I definitely would suggest listening to that episode. It was episode 420. History Goes Bump.
420.
It was 420. Okay, so yeah, I guess just talking a little bit about going there. So I've been there personally multiple times. So the first time I went was with my sister, Gwen. Her and I went up there. It is very interesting to get to because you honestly don't know how to get there or where it is unless someone's told you. I think you might probably now could look up and find out how to get there just like Googling it. Someone's probably shared the information, but if you don't know how to get there, it's not like it's on a main road or obvious or anything. There's no signs, there's no nothing. So the way you get there is you kind of park in this spot you're not technically supposed to park in. There's like signs or like say like no parking, but they don't tow, so it's fine. And then you walk up this kind of steep hill and you walk over the trail, the train tracks for the B&O Railroad, and you kind of walk back on this sort of trail, sort of man-made trail into the woods, and then there's this super duper steep staircase, like stone staircase. It's like probably like, I don't know, 30, 40 stairs up to where the ruins are. So it's a long walk up, and I mean, when I say every surface is graffitied, I mean every surface. Like all of the every piece of stone is covered in some kind of graffiti, which now apparently is some League of Legends nonsense. But I thought it was actually creepy. Now I'm not scared.
You're scared of the Mountain Dew.
Right. The Doritos, the Mountain Dew.
So wait, so the stairs have graffiti on them?
Yeah,
too?
everything has been covered in graffiti. It's pretty wild. So
are the stairs really rickety?
No, it's all like stone, cement.
They're nice stairs.
Yeah, they're not like, you don't walk up it and you're like, I'm gonna fall and die. I mean, just because it's so like high up, you do, but not because they're like falling apart.
Okay.
Yeah, they stayed pretty well, like intact. But then once you go up, you see kind of like a bed almost of just cement blocks and rocks and things. And lots of the things there are like a lot of the cement blocks and like kind of the iron sort of posts and things are all sort of charred. So you can really tell that there was a really serious fire, because you can imagine that over time, like as it rains and just normal weather, a lot of like char and things would wash off, but I guess the fire was so bad that it sort of sunk into a lot of these different materials. So that's interesting. You can see the char on some of them, and then also most of it is graffitied, so most of it's been drawn on or whatever. And there's actually a really nice trail to walk on down the path there, and there's one part that sort of, I think people call it the bunker. I don't think it was ever actually a bunker. I think it was probably just storage, but basically it's this cement pad that kind of looks down on this hill, and there's a hole in the cement pad. You can go down underneath it and into these rooms. Once again, they're all graffitied, and it's not like there's any light in there, so it's just whatever natural light sort of peeks through the holes. And the one time I was there, there were other people. There's lots of other people walking around seeing it. But the one time I was there, and I actually went in, because I only went in once, you know, there's lots of like trash and this beer cans and that kind of stuff, but there's also a few mattresses.
Oh boy.
Which I'm not sure what to make of that.
Make out point.
Maybe, but also maybe somebody was living in there. I don't know. Either way, I'm concerned, but that was interesting, to say the least. And then there's lots of other paths to walk down, kind of leading off into different directions. There's sort of this well altar looking spot that has lots of pentagrams and all, you know, they kind of say this is the place where they sacrifice or whatever. It's so silly. And then you keep going down, and there's this really fascinating structure, and I can't remember what it used to be a part of, or if it was its own thing or what, but basically it's this big arched sort of iron work kind of gazebo, very gothic looking thing with a altar in the middle of it with a cross on it. And it's all still standing there. And you know, it's very big, sturdy. All of it is very large. So it's not like falling over from like, you know, weather. It's pretty intense. But that's probably one of the coolest things that's on the property that's still standing. I'm sure the other buildings were beautiful when they were made, but yeah, it's very cool to see, and you can go up and like sit on it and everything. And then I don't know, there's a couple other paths to kind of walk down. There used to be a greenhouse there, which you can kind of see like where it was built, like the outline of the building.
Yeah, what's remaining of the building itself? Wait, okay, so let's go back. So we did all the timeline. So let me rewind to when we talked about the timeline. So there was a cathedral and a big house.
Yeah,
the house became a seminary.
Two big like house areas. Yeah, they lived in those houses, and then there were also like school sort of buildings.
Which house is the Hell House? Is it the cathedral?
The whole thing. The whole thing is considered the Hell House.
But there's multiple buildings.
There were multiple buildings that were all burnt down.
They all burnt down?
Yeah. And
like
over
the fire
time,
spread from one building to another,
right.
I guess?
Well, so they kind of were all attached, I think. So there was
okay.
an upper building, a lower building, and a cathedral. And then a few other smaller buildings that were schoolhouses and like storage, and then a greenhouse. And I think at the end, the smaller buildings maybe hadn't caught on fire, but they tore everything down. After I think in like 2006 or 2007, everything just got torn down. Whatever was sort of somewhat standing at that point.
So, how close is this in the middle of the woods or, okay.
Yeah, it's in the middle of the woods. Sort of, you have to walk a little bit. It's not right on the road. You have to kind of walk up a little bit, and then like those stairs are really, really tall.
It must have been a nice spot for a seminary.
Oh, beautiful. The view is beautiful. You look down on it's up on a tall hill, so it kind of the view is like looking down on there's the Patapsco River right there. So the other thing is right now, the land is owned by the state. So it's part of Patapsco State Park.
Huh.
But it isn't like marked, I don't think, as like these are trails that you can go walking or anything like that. It's just owned by them. But right where you park, like right across the street, is like this really beautiful walking bridge and beautiful view of Patapsco River and all of that kind of stuff. A beautiful hiking path that they've made.
Yeah.
So I can imagine, before they would have made all of that the view from the house and all of it was just beautiful. You're looking down on the river and lots of beautiful landscape.
So, did you mention earlier, I feel like I remember you said something about it burning and then many years later they shut it down or something?
Yeah, so part of it did catch on fire and it ruined one of the house. I think it was the lower house. And then at that point, there were so few people graduating, they decided to just close it completely.
Okay.
I think partly because of the space, I would imagine. They just didn't have as much room as before because some of it had been ruined.
But then there was still building standing until...
Correct. Until another fire at the end of the 90s.
Wait a second. What if there was nobody using the building, how was there another fire?
Like I said, I think it was like teenagers. It was Halloween night.
Oh
it was teenagers, doing the teenager thing.
And then most of the buildings
committing
were
arson.
Mostly burned down?
Yeah, I mean that was a huge, devastating kind of completely ruined everything kind of fire.
Yeah, and then they tore down the remains.
Whatever was still standing, which I don't think was a lot, but there was still like the shell of it was still standing.
Yeah. So what's there right now? Just like foundations?
Lots of bricks and stone pieces just laying around.
Yeah.
Some places you can sort of see an outline of where a building was, but most of it is just like, Yeah, just bricks sort of laying around, and everything is covered in graffiti. It's wild. You've never seen anything like it anywhere else. It's like this tiniest little stone, and someone's like drawn on it, you know. And apparently now they've drawn League of Legends something or the other. But yeah, it's a beautiful piece of land for sure, but also I don't know, when I went, I definitely felt like, I don't know, just partially because of like the lore and the, you know, all of it, the stories you've heard behind it or whatever. But even being there, it still felt weird. It felt kind of eerie almost. I guess, I don't know, it's sort of sad that it burnt down and was knocked down, because you can imagine it would have been beautiful. But also just the like overwhelming like paraphernalia around of like pentagrams and upside down crosses and
I mean, that's the thing, and that's what I was trying to say earlier. Lots of people are just like, they find urban legends and making things spooky and that kind of stuff. I mean, it's fun for them. Yeah. I mean, which is okay as long as they're not hurting anybody.
Sure.
I mean, that's big on the internet right now. There's lots of internet urban legend type of things. Creepypastas, as it's called.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. People were just into that. I don't think that, you know, they're trying to...
I don't think that there's actual satanic sacrifices taking place.
Oh, okay. Obviously,
at this place.
I mean, what I was going to say is I don't think that people that are putting up this graffiti actually believe any of it. They're trying to create an effect.
Yeah.
They're trying to make it spookier because it's fun.
Yes, I agree.
The same reason you do a haunted house on Halloween.
Sure. Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think honestly, at the end of the day, it's a beautiful, beautiful piece of land that's nice to just go on a walk around too, because there's so many people that have walked it that there's just a man-made sort of path all around it. And it's still a gorgeous piece of land. It's cool to see like kind of ruins of an old building. And yeah, I mean, like whenever I've went, there's always been lots of people there too. Just, you know, everybody knows about the place around in the area, and they want to check it out and see what's going on. I'm really tempted to go back now that I know that there's these like crazy paintings all over, whatever they may be. I'm really interested to see what that looks like in person.
You just want to find something that's not League of Legends.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, I think it's a cool thing in our like local history, but also it's cool that it's kind of seeped into some sort of pop culture stuff like Supernatural. And, you know, like I said, lots of people have known about it too as like this urban legend kind of crazy thing, and it's sort of been talked about amongst, you know, people that don't live in the area too. But I think that's all I have. I guess that's it. Did you learn anything?
I mean, well, obviously, yeah, I learned everything that you said was news to me, except for the fact that it is in Ellicott City and it's a haunted whatever. You know, it's haunted. It's spooky. Right. It was really interesting.
Awesome.
That was fun.
I liked doing the kind of like history.
Oh yeah. Well, that's stuff. So you used to be into that until you had a kid, and now you're not into the murdery stuff.
But I know. I like kind of spooky things. I guess now even more. I probably like the like sort of spooky, like that's probably not true, but it's kind of fun to pretend that it is. Sort of
urban legend stuff as opposed to true crime stuff.
Yeah, like something that someone actually getting murdered. Yeah, it has a whole new like kind of effect on me. But I mean, we'll probably talk about some of that stuff, but more of the like longer ago type stuff that has less of an effect.
We've seen My Favorite Murder, big podcast. We've seen it live in Nashville, which was very fun. It was for your birthday.
Yeah.
I had fun. It was. I mean, they even told the joke on stage. It was like, all right, who brought their boyfriends with them?
Right.
You know? It's like, right. But I thought it was really fun, and I've listened to. I've listened to their show, lots of episodes. I've listened to you watching other stuff.
Sure.
Bailey
Sarian.
Sarian.
Yes, we stand Bailey Sarian in this house.
Yeah. Those are all fun. I mean, it's fun to have a podcast with nice prepared historical spooky breakdowns,
right?
Which is what we've done for you today. Now we've actually done it. We've made our own spooky breakdown.
It's true. All right, awesome. Well, I guess that's it for this episode.
When we recorded the last episode, our podcast was available nowhere because we hadn't posted yet. But now our podcast is available on most of your major platforms. So give us a follow and
yes, please subscribe.
Subscribe and like.
And
that's a YouTube thing.
Right. And if you can, please leave us a 5-star rating. I know it does really good help with getting our podcast kind of out there more and listened by more people. The higher rated you get, the more you get promoted on charts and things. So if you can give us a 5-star rating, that would be awesome.
That's I don't think that's a Spotify thing.
It is a Spotify thing now.
Oh, it is? Okay.
It is.
I know it's also an iTunes thing.
It's also Apple Podcast thing. So we're on both those. We're also on the Google podcasts. We are on YouTube.
Yeah.
And we'll put just an added side note, I'll also put all of my references for my research for this podcast episode in the show notes, as well as links to both the YouTube channel that Chris mentioned and that I mentioned, or the podcast that I mentioned in the show notes as well.
I'll post all my references right now. It was all Wikipedia.
Nice.
But yeah. YouTube's probably the direct source, that's like where we have most control over what we post.
Yeah.
Plus we get a cool little animation in the background.
Right. And you can also go follow us on Instagram. I will post every week when we put up a new episode. And if you want to contact us, send us a message or whatever, you can do it through Instagram as well. And
also email at
yes.
whatdoyouknowabouttpod@gmail.com.
Feel free to send us a message if you have any questions or you want to send us a note, whatever it may be. We'd love to read it.
Read it on the show.
Well,
You'll get a shout out.
Yeah, we'd love to do that
if it's family friendly and relevant.
Yeah. I guess we just want to say thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate everyone that spends the time to listen to our podcast, and it means a lot to us. So hope you have a wonderful week.
The music's probably already playing.
Yes, the music that Christopher made, if you didn't know. I don't think we said in the last episode, but Christopher made the music for this episode.
Well,
last episode
the music hadn't been
yet,
so
big round of applause to Christopher for
see now the music's probably hasn't been playing.
I know.
When I said the music is playing.
I know, sorry.
Music's probably playing now because we're about to actually say goodbye.
Yes.
In 3, 2, 1. Goodbye.